Where does leverage accumulate when execution is no longer scarce?
That is the question.
It is the central question for our deep dive today. And frankly, if you have been watching the markets lately, it is the only question that matters right now.
Absolutely.
We all saw the bloodbath in February, the SaaS sell-off. We are talking about a $1 trillion repricing of software markets.
Right.
It is ugly out there. And the knee-jerk reaction I am seeing from a lot of people, especially the allocators and founders listening right now, is panic.
Feels like the floor is falling out.
Exactly. It feels like a crash. But the research we are unpacking today argues that this is not a collapse at all. It is a migration.
A structural migration of value.
Yeah.
And to understand it, you really have to accept a hard premise.
Which is?
That the repricing we are seeing is entirely rational.
It is rational. Okay, explain that. Because for 20 years, those software multiples, the 20x, 50x revenue multiples, they were the gold standard.
They were, but they were justified by scarcity. It was genuinely hard to build logic.
Right.
It was hard to integrate APIs. It was hard to maintain workflows. You paid a massive premium for execution because, frankly, execution was difficult.
And now it is not.
Now, AI is absorbing that logic. It is generating code instantly. It is simulating workflows.
The friction is compressing.
Exactly. The friction that protected those size margins is compressing to zero. So the premium on building the thing is evaporating because the building part is becoming a commodity.
Okay, so if the value is draining out of the building layer, the execution layer, where does it go? Because capital does not just vanish.
It moves.
Right. It moves upstream. And that is the core mission of our deep dive today. To map this migration, it is moving toward the systems that interpret intent, coordinate supply, and allocate demand.
What the research calls the coordination layer.
Before we get into the mechanics of that layer, I want to map this out properly for you. The source material breaks this evolution into 3 specific phases.
We really need to walk through these.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are still betting their entire portfolios on phase 1 or phase 2.
Thinking they are safe.
Which is a very dangerous place to be.
So phase 1, this is the era we are saying goodbye to. The execution phase. Traditional SaaS.
Right. Phase 1 is the world we have lived in for the last 2 decades. Value was concentrated in the application.
You bought Salesforce to manage your customers.
You bought QuickBooks for your books. The defensive moat was the code itself and the friction of switching. But as we just said, AI compresses that friction.
If an AI can spin up a bespoke CRM for you in seconds,
or if it can just execute the workflow without an app interface at all,
then the moat is gone. Execution moves from being a proprietary asset to being a pure utility.
Which naturally leads people to the next shiny object, phase 2.
The models, and I have to play devil's advocate here because this is the consensus trade right now in venture capital. Everyone is piling into foundation models.
Right. The narrative is that if the apps are dead, the models powering everything must be where the trillion-dollar outcomes live.
But our research explicitly calls this a capital trap. Why is it a trap?
Look at the economics. Yes, the models are incredible. They are the new electricity.
But that is exactly the problem.
Right. They are electricity. It is a commodity input. These companies are locked in a brutal arms race.
Elaborate on that, because on the surface, they seem to have massive pricing power right now.
For now, sure. But look at the capital expenditure. It costs billions to train these frontier models.
Billions.
And simultaneously, they are facing massive price compression on the output. Inference costs are dropping like a rock.
So you have a situation where you have to spend endless amounts of capital just to stay relevant.
While the price you could actually charge for your product is racing towards zero, it is a race to abundance.
And in macroeconomics, you cannot maintain high leverage or high margins on a resource that is abundant.
Exactly. If intelligence is infinite and cheap, you do not get rich selling intelligence. You get rich selling the thing that directs that intelligence.
Which brings us to phase 3, the coordination layer.
Right.
If execution is cheap and intelligence is a commodity, what is actually scarce?
Decision-making. The scarcity shifts entirely to deciding what gets done.
The text has a great line for this. Execution shapes supply.
But coordination shapes demand. The coordination layer is the system that sits above those foundation models.
It interprets what a user actually wants.
It aggregates the options, compresses the comparison process, and routes the execution.
That routing function, deciding exactly where the money goes, that is the new economic control point.
It is the bottleneck.
Okay, routing function sounds a bit abstract. Let us get mechanical here. How does a coordination layer actually exert leverage?
The research identifies 3 specific control pressures: authorization, routing, and flow.
Break those down.
First, authorization. Who is actually permitted to act on behalf of a user? This is the ultimate gatekeeper.
We're rooting.
Right. Routing is where that demand is directed. And third is flow. How does transaction volume concentrate?
So the thesis is that value moves to the layer that all transactions must pass through.
The translation layer. It takes messy human intent, I want this, and turns it into a structured transaction. Here is the money.
To make this concrete, let us look at the case study from the research, the Sarah scenario.
This is critical.
I really want to spend time on this because it perfectly illustrates the difference between the old world of search and this new world of coordination. Let us stick with small business lending.
In the old world, the world we live in today, Sarah is a small business owner in Austin. She needs capital.
What does she do? She goes to Google, she types best small business loan.
And we know exactly what happens next. She gets 10 blue links.
Mostly ads.
Mostly ads. She clicks 3 of them. She fills out 3 different forms.
She uploads her P&L statements 3 separate times.
She waits for a human to email her back.
Yeah.
It is a retrieval process. She is doing all the coordination herself.
The cognitive load is entirely on Sarah.
It is incredibly inefficient. Now, let us look at the coordination layer interaction.
Sarah does not type keywords. She speaks to an interface. But she does not just say she needs a loan. She provides what the text calls compressed identity and intent.
The fidelity of her prompt is shocking compared to a search query.
I'm going to read the transcript of her prompt from the source because it is so dense. Listen to this.
Go ahead.
She says, "My name is Sarah. I run a cafe in Austin, started 5 years ago. Revenue doubled in the last 2 years. I need $250,000 for a second location. I am putting in $80,000 of my own cash. I own a condo with equity."
Pause right there. Just think about the density of that signal.
It is a dossier.
It contains identity, financials, collateral, all in seconds.
And she keeps going. "Ideally, I want a 7 to 10 year term, interest only for the first 6 months. My credit is high 700s. I want a lender who understands hospitality."
That is not a query. Voice carries context that text completely suppresses.
Urgency, confidence, risk posture.
A keyword search strips all of that away. But here's the magic. What does the coordination layer do with that intent?
It definitely does not give her a list of links to read.
No. It ingests that context once. It evaluates credit and risk fit across every lender in its network simultaneously.
It matches product structures to her cash flow constraints because remember, she specifically asked for an interest-only period.
Right. It ranks institutional fit. And then it presents a single pre-qualified recommendation.
Sarah's not comparing websites anymore. She has delegated the judgment to the machine.
That is the macro shift.
Dev,
From assistance to delegation, from search to demand allocation.
let us follow the money here. Because if this shift happens, and looking at the efficiency gains, you have to assume it is inevitable. What happens to the industry structure?
The stack collapses.
Right. What happens to the banks, the brokers, the comparison sites?
The research calls it industry collapse. They do not mean the industry disappears. They mean the distribution stack flattens completely.
Right now, we have a highly fragmented distribution stack. Bank branches, relationship managers, online marketplaces.
Everyone fighting for attention. And customer acquisition cost is incredibly high for everyone because they are all fishing in the same expensive pond of Google Ads.
And the coordination layer flattens this.
Completely. And you have to understand, this is not just lead generation. Lead gen is selling a phone number.
This is programmable demand infrastructure.
Yes. When Sarah delegates that task, the coordination layer delivers a pre-underwritten, transaction-ready borrower directly to the lender.
The data, her identity, financials, collateral flows directly into the lender's origination system via API.
The lender does not have to sell to Sarah. They do not have to wine and dine her.
They just have to be able to receive the data.
That is the ultimatum for the lenders. They must integrate via API or they lose distribution entirely.
I have to push back here because we are talking about massive incumbents. The big banks, they spend billions on brand recognition.
They do.
They have thousands of physical branches. Are you telling me they're just going to roll over and become a dumb pipe for an AI interface?
They are going to fight it. They want to own the relationship.
Of course they do.
But distribution gravity does not ask for permission.
That is a great point.
If consumers start delegating decisions to an AI because it saves them 20 hours of paperwork and gets them a better rate, the bank's preference does not matter.
The only question that matters is whether the bank is integrated into that interface.
Exactly. It is integrate or become invisible. If you refuse to integrate to protect your brand experience, you simply will not see the deal flow.
The data flows to the lenders who are plugged in. Decisions compress from weeks to minutes.
And revenue shifts from having pricing power on your product to controlling the surface where the demand appears.
The bank literally becomes a balance sheet attached to an API.
It is a brutal outlook for anyone working in traditional distribution.
It really is. But let us look at another angle here. There is a strong narrative in the venture world right now about autonomous agents.
The idea that Sarah does not need a specialized coordination layer.
Right. She just has her own personal AI agent roaming the web, visiting every bank's website, filling out the forms for her. Why is that not the future?
The source material calls this the agent fallacy
Why is it a fallacy?
because it completely ignores the reality of liability. The open web is a liability minefield.
Explain that.
Think about the actual transaction. To get the loan, you need to bind a contract. You need payment authority.
You need compliance guardrails.
Exactly. You cannot just have a bot scraping a bank's website and signing legal documents on your behalf.
That is a security nightmare for the bank.
And a liability nightmare for Sarah.
So the trust boundary becomes the limiting factor.
Yes. Agents will not roam the open web for serious transactions. They will concentrate in permissioned, identity-aware environments.
Environments where that compliance work is already done.
Where there are standardized data schemas, where the agent knows if it sends this data, it is secure and the offer is binding.
Agents will route to the coordination layers where these rails are pre-integrated.
Demand does not fragment across the web. It concentrates in these trusted zones.
Which makes owning those zones the ultimate prize.
Exactly.
Okay, so let us get to the actionable part for the allocators listening. The capital allocation thesis.
This is where it all comes together.
We have established that the execution layer is commoditized. The model layer is a race to the bottom. So where is the investable asset? If software is infinite, what is scarce?
Linguistic real estate.
Linguistic real estate. The research refers to this as namespace gravity.
Right.
Let us unpack namespace gravity for the listeners who might not be familiar with the term.
Think about how you navigate the web today. You search, you see a list, you choose.
But in a voice-first world or an agent-mediated world, there is no search results page.
There's no list of 10 blue links.
You just ask for what you want.
And when visual navigation disappears, the entry point becomes everything. The words you use or the specific destination you invoke determines everything that happens next.
The source material mentions a specific example of this asset class, vibe domains.
Yes.
Now, just to be clear, we are discussing this strictly as the example provided in the text. But explain how a domain name, which feels like an old web asset, fits into this highly advanced AI infrastructure thesis.
It is totally counterintuitive. Most people view domains as marketing collateral. Just a catchy name for a website.
But the source describes vibe domains differently.
Very differently. It describes them not as marketing, but as a pre-assembled namespace positioned at the coordination layer.
So it is not about the website that sits at the domain. It is about the address itself.
It is about owning the linguistic real estate through which the intent is routed.
If you own the namespace that aligns with a specific high-intent vertical like small business loans,
And that namespace becomes the default entry point for the AI.
then you control the routing.
You are the toll booth. The thesis is that these namespaces are an early claim on the coordination layer.
And because they are held as a single acquisition unit, they are difficult to recreate piecemeal.
It is a piece of infrastructure. It is a bet on the asymmetry of the market.
Because as model prices compress, the value of that address actually goes up.
The model is just the engine. The namespace is the ignition.
For capital allocators, this represents convex optionality.
Right. You are not betting on which large language model wins. You do not care if it's GPT-5 or Claude or Gemini.
You are betting that whichever model wins, it will still need a structured entry point to interact with the user.
You are betting on the road, not the car.
It effectively becomes a utility play on intent.
Precisely.
So let us zoom out as we wrap this up. We were seeing a massive shift from a winner-takes-all dynamic at the application layer to a control point dynamic at the demand layer.
That is the core summary. And the danger for incumbents and for investors holding the wrong assets is complacency.
The danger is thinking that your legacy brand protects you from structural efficiency.
It did not protect newspapers from the internet.
It did not protect Blockbuster from streaming.
And it will not protect intermediaries from the coordination layer.
The question for the allocators listening is not whether this transition occurs.
The efficiency gains are just too high to stop it. Saving 20 hours of work and getting better rates is undeniable.
The real question is whether you participate in defining the entry point, whether you own a piece of the coordination layer.
Or whether you end up integrating into an environment defined by someone else.
And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. If AI completely abstracts away the interface and the coordination layer handles all the judgment, does consumer brand loyalty actually survive this transition? Or does loyalty just transfer entirely to the AI that does the coordinating?
That is the trillion-dollar question.
If the coordination layer becomes the dominant transaction interface, the namespace through which intent is expressed becomes the ultimate leverage point. We will be back with another deep dive soon.
Until next time.